She soaked her underwear in water and stirred the murky liquid into her cooking pot. At first, it seemed harmless. Her food became irresistible, the most craved in town. Customers wept with joy after just one bite, whispering that her stew tasted like memories they couldn't name. But then, the hunger changed. People stopped eating anything else. They dreamed of her food, fought over it, ached for it. Under the scorching sun, Aunty Noma sat patiently beneath her faded blue umbrella, her small food table barely noticeable beside the bustling main road. A single pot of soup, a humble portion of rice, and 2 wobbly chairs stood as her quiet offering to the world. Cars zoomed past, people hurried by, their eyes fixed on the flashy restaurants down the street. Her heart ached as another lunch hour slipped by without a single customer. Yet, she smiled, softly, warmly, as if she held a secret joy no one else could see. On the hardest days, she ate the untouched food herself, savoring each bite with quiet gratitude. Other times, when skinny children wandered close, their eyes wide with hunger, she'd wave them over, filling their small hands with warm meals. Their giggles were her payment, and it was enough. Then, one misty morning, a young man appeared. His shirt was torn at the edges, his face shadowed with exhaustion. He hesitated before her table, his voice barely a whisper. "Ma, do you have any food?" Aunty Noma's chest tightened. She knew that look, the deep, gnawing hunger of someone who had gone too long without. Without a second thought, she piled a plate high with rice and rich stew, pressing it into his hands. "Eat, my son. No charge today." The young man stared at the plate, then at her, as if unsure if kindness like this still existed. He took one bite. Then another. His eyes widened, and when he looked up at her, they shimmered with something she hadn't seen in years, pure, unguarded joy. "This?" His voice cracked. "This is the best food I've ever tasted." Aunty Noma blinked, her heart skipping. No one had ever said that about her simple cooking. Before she could reply, he was gone, vanishing into the crowd. But the next day, he returned, with 2 friends. They sat at her table, laughing as they ate, their faces alight with delight. Aunty Noma watched in quiet wonder, her hands trembling as she served them. What was happening? Word spread. Strangers came. Her 2 chairs multiplied into a row, her little table overflowing with plates. And still, she didn't understand, how could her ordinary food bring such happiness? Then, one evening, the young man lingered after the crowd had gone. "Auntie," he said gently, "it's not just the food. It's you. The way you care. That's what makes it taste like home." Tears pricked her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt it, the warmth of belonging, the magic of being seen. And under that blue umbrella, with laughter ringing around her, Aunty Noma finally understood. Her food had always been magic. By the 3rd week, something extraordinary was happening under the blue umbrella. Aunty Noma's once quiet spot was now alive with chatter and laughter. A long line of people stretched down the road, men in crisp work shirts leaning out of cars, schoolchildren still in uniforms, market women with empty containers tucked under their arms. Some brought their entire families, squeezing onto the 2 chairs like they were prized seats at a feast. "Your food is sweet, Auntie," they all said, their voices warm with wonder. She could hardly keep up. Her single pot had multiplied into 3, yet no matter how much she cooked, the food vanished before noon. But it wasn't just hunger drawing them in, it was something deeper. A taxi driver swore his back pain eased after eating her stew. A tired mother claimed her headache melted away with one bite. A young trader, down on his luck, insisted her rice brought him a sudden rush of customers. "Auntie, your food is blessed," he exclaimed, pressing extra money into her palm. The rumor spread like wildfire. "She adds a secret spice from her village," whispered one customer. No, she prays over the pot at sunrise," argued another. "Maybe it's juju," someone murmured, half joking, half serious. Aunty Noma heard it all. She'd simply smile, her eyes crinkling at the edges, and say nothing. Because the truth? It had nothing to do with pepper. Nothing to do with prayers. Her secret was simpler, and far more powerful. The sky was still a bruised purple when Aunty Noma stirred from sleep, her bones creaking like old wood. The air clung thick with dew, silent except for the distant crow of a rooster. This was her time, the hidden hour, when the world felt half dream, half truth. She lit a kerosene lamp, its flickering glow painting shadows on the walls. Then, with slow, deliberate movements, she peeled off her underwear, cotton, worn thin from years of use, and dropped it into a clay bowl of water. The fabric darkened as it drank, swirling like a living thing. "Soak what touches you the most," the old woman in her dream had whispered, her white eyes glowing like moonlit milk. "Your spirit will go into the pot." Aunty Noma shivered, remembering. The dream had felt so real she'd woken gasping, her skin prickling. At first, she'd dismissed it as nonsense. But then, curiosity gnawed at her. What if? That first morning, her hands trembled as she poured the soaked water into the pot. The act felt sacred, almost sinful. But when the food was ready, rich, fragrant, humming with heat, something shifted. Strangers lingered after eating, their eyes bright. A woman wept quietly into her napkin. A child, usually picky, licked his plate clean. Now, it was ritual. She lifted the underwear from the bowl, wringing it gently before draping it over a chair to dry. The water left behind was cloudy, alive with something she couldn't name. Into the pot it went, followed by tomatoes, onions, palm oil glistening like liquid amber. The sizzle of meat hitting oil was her morning hymn. As she stirred, she hummed, a tuneless, throaty sound. The steam curled around her face, kissing her cheeks. Her spirit in the pot. Was that why they came? Why they wept, why they claimed her food healed them? Not magic. Not juju. Just her. All her loneliness, her hope, her quiet love, simmered into every bite. Outside, the first customers were already gathering, their voices a drowsy murmur. Aunty Noma wiped her hands on her apron and smiled. Let the rumors fly. Some secrets were meant to stay buried. The marketplace buzzed with more than just the usual haggling and gossip, now, it simmered with resentment. Stalls that once thrived stood half empty, their pots of soup and rice cooling untouched. The other food sellers watched with narrowed eyes as the line under Aunty Noma's blue umbrella stretched longer each day. Whispers slithered between them like smoke. Is it witchcraft? A young vendor muttered, clutching her ladle like a weapon. Look at her, so quiet, so smug, another snapped. No one's food is that good without help. But Mama Coco, whose peppered snails and jollof rice had fed the market for a decade, said nothing. She just watched, her jaw tight, as another of her regulars walked past her stall, straight to Aunty Noma's table. That was the final grain of rice that tipped the scale. Junior had always been a boy who chased magic. Not the fairy tale kind, but the real, pulsing sort, the kind that made ordinary things glow. That's why he carried his camera everywhere, why his YouTube channel was littered with shaky clips of street magicians and grandmothers who could bend spoons with their prayers. And that's why, when whispers about the woman under the blue umbrella reached him, he came running. Aunty Noma's stall was smaller than he'd imagined. No flashing signs, no fancy tables, just a fading umbrella and a woman whose smile seemed stitched into her face. I'm making a vlog, Junior announced, shoving his camera toward her. About the best food in town. To his surprise, she laughed, a sound like dry leaves crunching underfoot, and waved him closer. Small Pekin, come. Film Lelo. He captured it all, her knotted hands ladling stew, the steam rising like ghostly fingers, the way customers closed their eyes as they chewed, as if tasting something beyond the plate. Auntie, what's your secret? He asked, zooming in. She paused, the wooden spoon hovering over the pot. Then, with a wink, God's hand is in my soup. The crowd around them erupted in amens and laughter. Junior grinned. This was gold. The video exploded. Miracle food cures ailments, the thumbnail screamed, with Aunty Noma's face pixelated beside a glowing plate. Views doubled, then tripled. Strangers flooded the stall, women in designer sunglasses clutching Tupperware, men filming themselves crying after the first bite. My ulcer pain vanished. I got a promotion after eating here. Aunty Noma, bewildered, kept cooking. But her hands shook now. The line never ended. Junior, though, wasn't satisfied. Magic had rules. And he needed to know. He arrived before dawn, the sky still smudged with night. Crouching behind a thorny bush, he aimed his camera at her window. At first, nothing. Just shadows. Then, Aunty Noma stepped into view, her nightgown thin under the lamplight. Junior's breath hitched as she peeled off her underwear, dropped it into a bowl of water. His lens fogged, he wiped it frantically. What the? She hummed as she worked, pouring the cloudy water into her pot, adding onions, tomatoes, like it was nothing. Like this was normal. Junior's stomach lurched. This wasn't magic. This was disgusting. The footage burned in his camera. He could post it, should post it. People deserved to know. But then he remembered the way she'd smiled at him. The way her customers hugged her after eating. His thumb hovered over upload. Junior's chest tightened as he pressed closer to the window, his fingers digging into the rough wall. The early morning air felt thick, suffocating. Aunty Noma moved slowly, her hand steady as she lifted a faded red pant from the bowl. The water dripped like something sacred, catching the dim light. She swirled her fingers through it, humming a tune so soft it seemed to curl into the walls. Then, without hesitation, she poured it into the pot. Junior's stomach lurched. No way, he breathed, the words sticking in his throat. His camera weighed heavy in his hands, still recording. This was it. The real secret. He stumbled back, his pulse hammering in his ears. At home, the video played on a loop, each frame burning into his mind. Aunty Noma's calm face. The red fabric sinking into the water. The quiet, almost tender way she stirred it all together. Should I post this? His own voice sounded foreign, shaky. Fame hovered just within reach, his channel would explode. But then, darker thoughts slithered in. What would people do if they knew? The camera trembled in his grip. This wasn't just a secret. It was a match held over dry grass. Junior's thumb trembled as it hovered over the screen. A cold sweat prickled at the back of his neck. People deserve to know, he muttered, but the words tasted bitter in his mouth. His stomach twisted as he imagined Aunty Noma's face, her warm smile, the way she'd laughed when he filmed her. He clicked upload. The video loaded with a quiet whoosh, its title glaring back at him, the truth behind the famous food seller. At first, nothing. Just a handful of views trickling in. Then, ping, ping, ping. Notifications exploded across his screen. Is this real? I ate there last week. Maybe that's why her food tastes like heaven. Laughter. Disgust. Skepticism. The comments blurred together, a whirlwind of outrage and jokes. Junior's breath came faster. He hadn't expected it to spread this quickly. By sunset, the crowd outside Aunty Noma's stand wasn't holding plates. They were holding accusations. Aunty Noma's heart stopped when she saw them, the crowd, their faces twisted with something she had never seen before. Anger. Disgust. Betrayal. Is it true? A voice snapped. Her breath caught. You soak your pant in water? Another phone thrust toward her, the screen glowing with her own reflection, small, exposed. Her hands shook. Who told you that? The words barely left her lips, thin and fragile. Then, Junior. He stepped forward, his body trembling like a leaf in wind. I filmed it, he admitted, voice cracking. I'm sorry, Auntie. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted people to know the truth. The crowd erupted. Gasps slithered through the air. Some turned away, containers clattering to the ground, food spilling like wasted trust. Others stood frozen, caught between disbelief and horror. No wonder my husband can't stop thinking about her stew, a woman shrieked, her voice sharp with venom. Aunty Noma's chest caved in. The faces that had once lit up with joy now stared at her, through her, as if she were something foul. Something unnatural. Tears burned down her cheeks, hot and silent. The spoon slipped from her fingers, clattering against the pot. And for the first time in weeks, her food sat untouched. Full. Like her heart. The knock came like a whisper in the dark. Noma's hands were still raw from scrubbing empty pots when she heard it, soft, but heavy with purpose. Her pulse stuttered as she pulled the door open. The old woman stood there, her gray hair glowing silver in the moonlight. Her eyes cut through the shadows, sharp as broken glass. "Let me in." Noma's breath hitched. She knew that voice, not from this world, but from the dream. "Mama isi." The air turned thick as the woman stepped inside, her cane tapping against the floor like a clock counting down. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on the empty bowl by the stove. "I warned you." Her voice was low, scraping against Noma's skin. "Never let outsiders see the ritual." Noma's stomach dropped. "You were in my dream." "Yes." Mama Isi's lips barely moved. "And I told you, the power comes from silence. Now, the silence is broken." The weight of it crashed down. Noma's legs gave way, her knees hitting the hard floor with a thud. "Please." Her voice cracked, thin with desperation. "Help me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted to feed people. To survive." Mama Isi exhaled, long and slow, like wind through a graveyard. "The spirit in the water is angry now." She leaned closer, her shadow swallowing Noma whole. "And when it's angry, it takes something in return." A chill slithered down Noma's spine. The debt was due. The wind howled through the cracks in her walls, a restless ghost that wouldn't let her rest. Noma lay stiff on her bed, the old woman's words clawing at her mind. "It takes something in return." What? Morning came gray and heavy. She dragged herself to the stand, her hands numb as she set up the blue umbrella. The street was too quiet. No laughter, no clatter of plates, just the hollow sound of her own breath. No one came. Not even the children who used to grin up at her with rice-sticky fingers. Her chest ached as she packed the untouched food away, the pot still full, still warm. The walk home was long, each step heavier than the last. Then, her phone screamed to life. "Noma." Sada's voice was raw, shredded with fear. "My son. He won't wake up. He's breathing, but it's like he's trapped somewhere deep." The world tilted. Her nephew. The first child she'd fed from that pot. The first soul touched by the water. A cold certainty slithered through her veins. This was the price. Noma's hands trembled as she burst into her sister's home. The air inside was thick, not with sickness, but with something deeper, something wrong. Tunji lay motionless on the bed, his small chest rising and falling too slowly. Tears seeped from his closed eyes, trailing down his cheeks like silent pleas. Noma reached out, her fingers brushing his damp forehead. "Spirit of the water," she choked out, "please, don't take him." A sudden gust of wind tore through the room. The window slammed shut with a crack that made Sod scream, clutching her son tighter. The temperature plummeted, Noma's breath fogged in the air as a whisper coiled around them. "You broke the circle." The word slithered into Noma's bones. She understood. The spirit wasn't just angry about the exposure, it was furious at her. She had taken its gift and twisted it, not just to feed, but to thrive. The money, the crowds, the fame, she had let herself enjoy it. The voice came again, icy and precise. "One soul for every truth." Then, silence. The room warmed. The air stilled. But the weight of the warning lingered, heavier than death. Tunji remained asleep. For now. Noma's bare feet pounded against the dirt path, her breath ragged as she stumbled toward the riverbank. The moon cast jagged reflections on the black water, the same water that had whispered secrets to her in dreams. She fell to her knees, mud seeping through her wrapper. "I didn't mean to break the rule." Her voice tore through the night, raw and desperate. "Take me instead. Don't punish them for my mistake." The river shuddered. Bubbles broke the surface. Then, a hand, pale as bleached bone, fingers stretching toward the sky. Noma recoiled as the figure rose, water cascading off a body both familiar and alien. The spirit's face mirrored hers, but gaunt, hollow, eyes burning with centuries of quiet rage. Hair billowed around her like ink spilled in water. "You wanted fame," the spirit hissed. The river trembled with each word. "Now the town spits your name. You wanted fortune. Now you drown in debt." Noma clutched her own arms, nails biting into skin. "What must I do?" The spirit's head tilted, unnatural, owl-like. "Give me something stronger than cloth soaked in loneliness." A skeletal finger tapped the water's surface. "Something that can carry the weight of 100 hearts." Then, a splash. Silence. Noma sat frozen, river water soaking her knees. The question pulsed in her skull, louder than fear. What could possibly hold more power than the fabric of her own life? The first light of dawn painted the river in pale gold as Noma finally stirred. Her body ached from hours of kneeling, her clothes clinging to her skin like a second layer of shame. But in her chest, a spark. Something more powerful than cloth. The words tasted strange on her chapped lips. "Something that holds many hearts." Then, a memory. Her mother, years ago, brushing her hair by the fire. "A woman's hair carries her strength," she'd said. "Every strand holds a story." Noma's breath caught. Hair. She scrambled to her feet, water sloshing from her soaked clothes as she ran. At home, her hands didn't shake as she lifted the comb, the same one she'd used every morning before the ritual. Trapped in its teeth, dozens of wiry strands glinted in the weak light. Each one a piece of her. Each one alive with memory. With trembling care, she plucked them free. Then, the sharp snip of scissors as fresh curls fell into her palm. The bowl waited, water still as a held breath. "This time," she whispered, "I won't make mistakes." The hair swirled as she dropped it in, dark tendrils unfurling like roots seeking soil. She pressed her palm flat against the surface. "Spirit," her voice didn't waver now, "enter this water. Make them love again. Make them forget." A tremor ran through the bowl. Then stillness. The strands floated, innocent as reeds. But the air smelled suddenly of wet earth and something older. Something listening. The weight of their stares pressed against Noma's skin like hot coals as she walked to her stand. 3 days gone, and now their eyes clung to her, suspicious, curious, hungry. She kept her head down, her movements deliberate, her lips sealed tight. No smiles today. The pot settled onto the fire with a quiet clank. Then, the scent. Richer than before, deeper, curling through the air like a whispered secret. It hooked into passers-by, pulling them closer before they even realized they'd stopped walking. A man edged forward, his nose twitching. "Are you selling today?" Noma nodded once. His first bite made his shoulders slump. The second made his eyelids flutter. Then, This is better than before." His voice cracked with something like awe, and the crowd stirred, murmurs rising like steam. One by one, they fell into line, their earlier outrage dissolving on their tongues with each spoonful. Noma watched, her pulse steady but her chest tight. It worked. But then, a prickle at the back of her neck. Junior stood at the edge of the crowd, his camera hanging limp at his side, his face unreadable. Junior stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, his stomach twisting as he watched them eat, their faces slack with pleasure, their eyes glazed like men in a trance. His fingers fumbled for his phone, pulling up the video that had started it all. The comments mocked him now. "This is old news. Her food is still fire. Leave that woman alone, a beg." A cold, creeping dread settled in his chest. His breath hitched. Did I do the right thing? The question gnawed at him, sharp and unrelenting. Why do I feel heavy? That night, sleep dragged him under like a stone in deep water. Then, the dream. A woman with hair like swirling smoke loomed over him, her voice a whisper that slithered into his bones. "You broke the bond. Now you must carry the weight." He woke gasping, his throat clenched tight. And the taste of something foreign, wiry, wrong on his tongue. A single strand of black hair. Junior's hands flew to his throat, fingers pressing desperately against his skin as he tried to scream. Nothing. Just hollow, soundless air. His mother's face swam into view, her eyes wide with panic. "Junior, what's wrong? Talk now." But his voice was gone. Tears blurred his vision as he thrashed, pointing at his mouth, his chest heaving with silent sobs. The clinic walls closed in around him, sterile and useless. The doctor's lips moved, "His throat is fine," but the words rang hollow. His mother's whisper cut deeper than any diagnosis. "Is it spiritual?" The doctor looked away. Junior didn't need an answer. The woman from the dream had taken it. His voice, his noise, the very thing that had torn Aunty Noma's secret wide open. Now it belonged to the spirit. Aunty Noma's hands moved mechanically, serving plate after plate, but her heart pounded with growing dread. The crowd was different now, not just hungry, but desperate. Eyes gleamed too brightly. Hands trembled as they snatched plates. A woman wailed when the pot emptied, her cries raw and guttural, like a child ripped from its mother. A man collapsed, his body hitting the dirt with a thud, his face twisted in anguish over a missing piece of meat. Noma's breath came short and shallow. "What is this?" The question clawed at her ribs. They weren't just eating. They were starving, for her. The knock came like a death sentence. Mama Isi stood in the doorway, her presence sucking the warmth from the room. Noma's knees buckled. "You fed them too well," the spirit murmured, her voice like dry leaves scraping stone. "Now, they are mine." Noma's plea tore free, "Please. I didn't know." But the words withered under Mama Isi's gaze. "You gave them your hair, your very essence." A skeletal finger traced the air. "Now they hunger not for your food, but for you." Ice flooded Noma's veins. "The next time your pot finishes." Mama Isi's smile split like a crack in the earth. "Someone will not wake up." Then, darkness. Empty space where the spirit had stood. The ladle trembled in Noma's grip as she served the last portion to Musa, gentle Musa, who never complained, never pushed. His quiet thank you pierced her like a knife. She watched him eat, her stomach twisting with each bite he took. Then, a sigh. A slump. At first, the crowd chuckled. "Musa is sleeping well, oh." But the seconds stretched. Noma's feet carried her forward, her pulse roaring in her ears. "Musa?" No response. His chest was still. His plate, clean. The truth crashed over her. She had killed him. Not with poison. With hunger. A scream ripped through the crowd, sharp, primal. "He's not breathing." The joyful chatter curdled into panic. Plates clattered to the ground. A child's wail pierced the air, "Mama, I don't want to die." And Noma's blood turned to ice. She couldn't move. Couldn't blink. Musa's lifeless face burned into her vision. The spirit's warning had been real. And she had served death on a plate. The police officer's voice was a blade. "What did you put in the food?" Tears streaked her cheeks, hot and silent. "Nothing strange," she lied, her voice hollow. "Just rice and stew." But as they hauled Musa's body away, the whisper slithered after her. That food was too sweet to be normal. Maybe he had a weak heart. And then, under cover of night, two shadows at her back door, voices trembling with need. "Please, just one spoon. We'll pay anything." The lock clicked shut. Noma slid to the floor, her back against the door, her breath ragged. Every sob shook her body. More would die if she cooked. But if she stopped, would they tear her apart? The mirror caught her reflection, gaunt, haunted, eyes like bottomless pits. What have I become? Then. Movement. Mama Isi's grin flickered in the glass. Noma's scream shattered the silence as the mirror hit the floor. But the voice wasn't outside her head anymore. It was inside. Soft. Seductive. The more they eat, the more they belong to you. Her hands trembled, not just from fear. From something darker. Something hungry. She didn't sleep. Because the truth coiled in her chest, venomous and sweet. She liked the power. And that terrified her most of all. Noma's breath hitched as she peered through the cracked curtain. Shadows shifted in the moonlight, not just a few, but a crowd, their eyes glinting with an unnatural hunger. Bowls and pots dangled from their hands like offerings to some dark god. We know you're in there. The woman's voice was raw, desperate. Please. Just one spoon. We can't sleep. We need it. Noma's fingers dug into the windowsill. She had hoped they'd forget. Instead, they'd become hollow-eyed ghosts of themselves. The man's voice cut through the night, trembling with devotion. You gave us a gift. Don't take it back. Then. The chant began. Low at first, then rising, twisting into something manic. Cook for us. Cook for us. Cook for us. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't hunger anymore. It was possession. The town had unraveled. Children curled on the dirt near her shuttered stand, clutching empty bowls like sacred relics. Workers in rumpled uniforms swayed on their feet, too dazed to care about jobs. Tolu, once vibrant, now gaunt, licked a spoon with religious fervor. Other food tastes like sand, she murmured. Only yours fills my soul. Nearby, men brawled over crusted leftovers, their fists flying with animal desperation. A pastor reached out, only to be shoved away with snarls. Bring rice, not prayers. Noma watched from her window, nausea churning in her gut. She hadn't just fed them. She'd ruined them. Mama Isi materialized without sound, her carousel dress whispering against the floor. They belong to you now, she purred. Feed them, or watch their minds unravel. Noma's tears were hot, angry. But they'll die. Like Musa. Like. Let them. Mama Isi's grin stretched too wide. Each soul feeds the river. Each death grows your power. I never wanted this. Noma choked. I just wanted to live. The spirit leaned in, her breath like damp earth. Then choose. Weak water for slow hunger, or your full strength for glory. A pot materialized, steam coiling into shapes, faces, pleading mouths. Noma stared into the mist. The choice was hers. And the weight of it crushed her. A chill ran through the market as the stranger walked past. His black clothes swallowed the sunlight, his dark glasses hiding any hint of emotion. The guesthouse manager's fingers trembled as he read the ID, investigator, but the man offered no explanation. Whispers slithered through the crowd. Who's he? Why is he watching us? But the man ignored them all. His sharp gaze locked onto the line of hollow-eyed people still waiting at Noma's stand, their hands twitching with need. A quiet realization settled in his chest like a stone. This wasn't hunger. This was control. The knock startled Noma, firm, deliberate. I'm not here to arrest you, the man's voice came through the door, low and steady. I'm here to understand you. Her fingers hesitated on the latch before she pulled it open, just enough to see his face. No anger. No judgment. Just knowing. The air in her sparse home felt heavier with him inside. He studied the bare walls, the silence, then finally, her. The weight of his stare made her skin prickle. What do you put in your food? Her throat tightened. Do you believe it's your cooking that brings them here? He pressed. Or is it something else, something beyond you? A truth clawed up her throat, they beg for it. Even when I don't want to give. He leaned in, unblinking. But you started it. You chose it. And now, it's too late to act innocent. Tears blurred her vision. Can I stop it? His voice didn't soften. No. But maybe, you can contain it. The book hit the table with a thud that echoed through Noma's bones. Animal skin. Red string. Something alive in its stillness. This is not police work, the man said. This is spiritual crime. The pages whispered as he turned them, revealing symbols that twisted under her gaze, and then, her. Mama Isi's face stared back from the paper, older than time. Noma's breath vanished. She has been in many places, the man said. Different names. Same spirit. His finger tapped the page. She offers power through anything close to the body, food, drink, cloth. A long pause. Then, quieter. If you want to save yourself, find the original pot. The one she first cooked with. Noma's mouth went dry. That pot wasn't lost. It was buried. And she knew exactly where. Noma's hands trembled as she gripped the shovel. The moon cast long shadows across the dirt, making every movement feel like a betrayal. Just in case, she had told herself when she buried it. Now, the memory of that decision tasted like ash in her mouth. The man in black stood like a sentinel beside her, his silence heavier than words. Are you sure it's here? She didn't answer, just dug faster, each thrust of the shovel sending jolts up her arms. The air grew colder with every scoop, her breath coming in ragged puffs of white. Then, clunk. Her heart stopped. There it was. The black pot, its cracked surface now etched with glowing symbols that pulsed like a slow, sick heartbeat. As her fingers hovered over it, the wind screamed through the trees, carrying a whisper that slithered into her ears. Touch it, and you touch me. Her hand moved without her consent. An invisible force wrenched her wrist, cold, ancient, hungry. Her vision widened out as her back arched violently, a gasp tearing from her throat. The man lunged forward, catching her just before she hit the ground. Her body convulsed, limbs thrashing as Mama Isi's voice poured from her lips. Foolish child. You opened the gate. You fed them my hunger. Now you want to close it? The man moved fast, sprinkling white powder over the pot. The symbols hissed and dimmed, smoke curling like dying fingers. Noma collapsed, her own voice returning in a whimper. What was that? The man's eyes were grim. She's in the pot. But she's also in you. The screams started at dawn. Not the usual cries of children waking from nightmares, these were guttural, wrong. Parents burst into rooms to find their little ones shaking, pupils blown wide, chanting Noma's name like a prayer. Noma. 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 One girl sank her teeth into her mother's arm, then bolted outside, shrieking, "Give me stew." When the news reached Noma, the bowl slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. A cold certainty settled in her bones. It's too late, she whispered. She's not feeding on food anymore. She's feeding on need itself. The man's voice was quiet, final. Then you must stop cooking, forever. But Noma's hands curled into fists. Could the town survive that? Could she? The hunger wasn't just in them now. It was in her. And part of her, the darkest part, liked it. Noma's hands hovered over the stove, trembling. The pot before her bubbled softly, no magic, no whispers, just simple ingredients simmering in silence. 2 days without cooking, and the town had unraveled. The cries of children echoed in her skull, Aunty. Aunty Noma, like a chant haunting her dreams. Grown men brawled like animals in the streets. Even infants turned away from their mother's milk, their tiny voices begging for her. Her heart ached, heavy with guilt and something deeper, responsibility. "I'll cook one last time," she whispered to the empty kitchen. "But not with her. Just me. Just love." Tears slipped down her cheeks, falling into the stew. The scent that rose was ordinary, warm, human. No enchantment. No hunger woven into the steam. People came, drawn by habit more than craving. They ate. Some smiled, comforted by the familiarity. But others, their faces twisted in disgust, food spat onto the ground, "It's not the same." Their disappointment cut deeper than fear. The air turned to ice before the door blew open. Mama Isi didn't walk in, she unfolded into the room, her hair alive like flames, her eyes pits of black rage. The walls groaned as if the house itself feared her. "You dare serve food without me?" Her voice wasn't a sound, it was a quake, rattling Noma's bones. "You break the bond, you break the feast." Noma clutched the black pot to her chest, its heat searing her fingers. "I want you gone," she forced out, voice shaking but firm. "Take your hunger and leave my town." Mama Isi's laughter was a storm. "I don't leave. I grow." Her grin split her face too wide. "I feed on craving, and now, even babies call my name." Glass exploded. The floor buckled. The pot in Noma's arms burned hotter, the cymbals glowing red as coals. Then, a hand, skeletal and endless, reached for her throat. Noma braced for the end. But the man in black materialized like shadow-given form, his charm stone striking the spirit's back with a crack like thunder. Mama Isi's shriek pierced the air. Then silence. Only smoke remained. And the pot, now cold and still in Noma's blistered hands. Noma's fingers traced the cracks in the black pot, her breath shallow. The man's words settled like stones in her stomach. "If we break it the wrong way, she'll scatter into everyone she's touched." Her vision blurred. The whole town, possessed, ruined, lost. Then how do we stop her? Her voice was barely a whisper. The man's finger landed on a line in his book, the ink faded but the words clear as a death sentence. "Burn the pot, using the blood of the first fed." Noma's chest tightened. Jide. The first. The one who started it all. The pot weighed nothing in her lap, and yet it crushed her. "His name was Jide," she murmured, the memory of his smile, grateful, bright, flashing behind her closed eyelids. "He was hungry. I gave him food for free. Now his blood was the key. And he was missing." The town's answers were useless, gone for work, sick, vanished. Every dead end made her heart pound harder. "Jide." Her plea was silent, desperate. "Come back. Before this thing eats us all." But the shadows watched. And in them, Amaka. Her apprentice. Her betrayer. Amaka had always been quiet. Too quiet. Her hands were quick, her smiles easy, her eyes always watching. Noma never noticed. But Amaka had seen everything. The rituals. The whispers. The power. And she had taken it for herself. That first time, her own underwear soaking in the bowl, her father's stunned praise, it had been a game. Now it was an addiction. And as Noma and the man in black searched for Jide, Amaka's fingers curled around the black pot, her pulse frantic. "If she breaks the bond, my power will die too." The thought was unbearable. So she did what she had to. She stole the pot. And with it, their only hope. Noma's hand shook as she flung open the cupboard door. The empty space where the pot had been yawned back at her like a gaping wound. Her legs gave out. "No, no, no." Her scream tore through the house, raw and ragged. She scrambled on the floor, overturning baskets, yanking at blankets, nothing. The man in black appeared in the doorway, his usual calm shattered as he took in the scene. "This changes everything," he said, voice low with urgency. If it falls into the wrong hands. Noma's breath hitched. Amaka. The girl's room was hollowed out, clothes gone, bed stripped, only a single note left behind. It's mine now. You taught me well. I'll cook, my own way. Noma collapsed, tears burning down her face. She doesn't know what she's holding, she sobbed. She doesn't understand what that pot can do to her. Amaka's newsstand reeked of power. The black pot sat atop the fire, its surface shimmering with heat. She stirred slowly, methodically, her face blank. No joy. No fear. Just hunger, for control, for worship, for more. Her stew bubbled thick and dark, the scent curling through the air like a living thing. She added pieces of herself, hair, nails, blood, each drop hissing as it hit the surface. This is mine now, she murmured, but the words felt hollow even to her. They came without her calling. Drawn like moths to a flame, their eyes glazed, their mouths slack. She served them, one after another, watching as they devoured the food with trembling hands. By sundown, the line stretched beyond sight. And Amaka? She felt nothing at all. The town unraveled by the hour. People staggered through the streets, their minds emptied of everything but craving. A woman clawed at her own arms, whispering more, more, more. A group of children gnawed on sticks, pretending they were bones from Amaka's pot. The mayor groveled in the dirt, his polished shoes forgotten. Please, he begged, just one bite. A man tore off his clothes, his laughter shrill as he collapsed, twitching. I belong to the pot. The market stall stood abandoned. The schoolhouse echoed with silence. Even the church bells had stopped ringing. And Noma? She stood on her porch, watching the nightmare she'd created mutate into something worse. Her hands clenched into fists. This wasn't hunger anymore. Noma's hands trembled as she tightened her scarf, her fingers brushing the old wooden spoon, the one she'd used for years, worn smooth by countless stirs. The weight of it in her palm felt like the only real thing left. I started this, she whispered, her voice raw but steady. I will end it. The man in black gripped her arm. You can't face her. That pot is more powerful now. She fed it with blood. Noma shook him off, her eyes burning with a fire she hadn't felt in months. I don't care. That girl is using something she doesn't understand. And people are dying. The walk to Amaka's stand was a march through hell. Smoke curled in the air, thick and cloying. The people around her were lost, gnawing on bones, licking plates, their eyes rolled back in ecstasy. They didn't even see her. And at the center of it all, Amaka. Her throne was made of broken spoons and stained mats, her face eerily calm. When their eyes met, Amaka smiled. But it wasn't a smile anymore. It was a predator baring its teeth. Noma stood before Amaka, her fists clenched so tight her nails bit into her palms. Give me the pot, she said, her voice low but carrying over the madness. Before it's too late. Amaka tilted her head, her glowing eyes flickering like candle flames. You're just jealous, she sneered. They love me now. They bow for me. You were too soft, too afraid to take power. Noma stepped forward, her heart pounding. They're not bowing. They're breaking. Look around, Amaka, they become slaves to stew. Amaka's laughter was sharp, brittle. Good. Let them worship what they truly crave. With a sudden movement, Noma raised her old wooden spoon and slammed it to the ground. The earth trembled beneath their feet. I cooked with care. You cook with greed, Noma spat. And that pot doesn't belong to either of us. It belongs to her. The pot erupted. Dark, oily steam billowed out, thicker than smoke, heavier than sin. The crowd froze, spoons suspended midair, mouths slack. Then the screaming started. Amaka staggered back, her confidence crumbling. What's happening? From the depths of the pot, Mama Isi rose, not a shadow, not a dream, but real. Her skin cracked like parched earth, her eyes burned with hellfire, and her voice shook the world. You fed them well, she growled. But you fed yourself too much. Her clawed hands reached for Amaka, who shrieked, her bravado vanishing into pure terror. You wanted the power, Mama Isi hissed. Now carry the price. Noma didn't hesitate. She stepped between them, her arms spread wide. No, she shouted, her voice ringing with defiance. Take me. This madness ends with me. Mama Isi's fingers hovered over Noma's chest, her cracked lips curling. You would give your soul? Noma didn't flinch. Let her go. Let them go. Just take me, and end it. The spirit's smile widened, too many teeth, too much hunger. You always were the better cook. Her hand pressed down. And the world split open. The man in black lunged forward, a second pot glowing like molten rock in his grip. I found it, he roared. The first true vessel. The crash of clay shattered the air. Mama Isi's scream was the sound of 1,000 breaking bones. Her form splintered, black mist erupting like a dying storm. The cursed pot exploded. Noma fell. Amaka crumpled. And the town breathed. Dawn came softly, as if ashamed of the night before. Market stalls creaked open. Birds sang. A child's laughter rang out, ordinary, fragile, human. But the scorched earth where Amaka's stand had been told another story. Ashes clung to scattered spoons, the last remnants of a feast that had. Then he came. The stranger's suit was too crisp, his smile too even. The silver snake on his finger caught the light as he leaned in. Is it true? His voice was syrup over steel. That one woman fed a whole town, with spirit? Noma's tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. The warning that flared in her chest wasn't fear. It was recognition. The golden spoon gleamed like a thread on her table. We can feed kings, the man purred. Presidents. The whole continent. Noma didn't touch it. The metal seemed to pulse, as if something inside was breathing. I don't cook like that anymore. His chuckle made her skin prickle. Not even one bowl? For old time's sake? She stepped closer, meeting his gaze, really meeting it, for the first time. Let me tell you something, she said, her voice low as a grave. Once you open a door to the spirit world, it never really closes. It just waits for a new cook. Her finger stabbed toward the spoon. Take that, and leave. Before something answers your call. He went. But the spoon remained. And in its reflection, something blinked. Noma sat in the dim kitchen, the golden spoon heavy in her palm. Its surface gleamed dully in the lamplight, cold, lifeless, waiting. She carried it outside, the night air thick with the scent of damp earth. The bush swallowed her footsteps as she dug, deep, deeper, until the hole gaped like an open mouth. No more, she whispered, dropping the spoon into the darkness. Not here. The soil swallowed it whole. That night, Mama Isi came to her in dreams, not as a threat, but as a shadow across distant waters. You closed your kitchen, the spirit murmured, voice rippling like the river between them. But others are still cooking. Noma didn't flinch. Let them. But I'll never stir your stew again. Mama Isi's smile was the last thing to fade into the mist. The town carried Noma's name like a scar, sometimes with gratitude, sometimes with a shudder. She saved us, some said. She nearly ruined us, others countered. But in kitchens, where steam rose and pots bubbled, mothers warned their daughters, cook with love, not with power. And far away, a child's careless strand of hair spiraled into a pot. Beneath the earth, the golden spoon trembled. And somewhere beyond the mist, a hunger that never truly slept smiled. Please subscribe for more stories.